Everyone is joining. Welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at our next webinar, Unlock the DNA of High Performing Teams. We are thrilled that you are joining us today. I know people are still joining, so if while we're waiting for everyone to join in, if you could let us know in the chat that you can see and hear us, that you can see the slides, that would be fantastic. Give us a quick thumbs up or a yes in the chat. And on that note, we love to run our webinars and virtual training events as if we're in the room together. So we really encourage interaction. And if you can have your camera on, that would be wonderful. It really gives us a great sense of who we're speaking to and who's here in the room with us today. Just while we wait a minute or two for everyone to jump in, we'd love to know where you're joining us from today. Let us know where you're located. I'm up here in Heathcote, freezing cold Heathcote today, in regional Victoria. So pop in the chat where you're joining us from. And also, I'd love to know what organisation you're with as well. If you can pop that in the chat too. It's always great to see who's here in the room with us today. So we've still got a few people joining as we speak. Ah, wonderful. Emma, Brown Family Wine Group. Beautiful. You're in Millawa. Fantastic. That is wonderful. Oh, Perth. I used to live in Perth myself. Fantastic. Brisbane. Wow, everywhere. Melbourne. Cronulla. Amazing. A few from Brown Family Wine Group. That's wonderful. Thank you for joining us. So we will get started in just a moment, but before we get started on the content today, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all learning today, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So we're really glad that you've made the time to join us here today. And the topic, we're really excited about today's webinar because the topic that we're diving into has the potential to fundamentally shift how you lead, how your team operates, and how you can build a culture that doesn't just perform, but truly thrives. So we know that obviously in today's dynamic and demanding workplaces, leaders are really expected to step up and do more than ever. And you're asked to align teams, deliver outcomes, navigate complexity, all while keeping your people engaged, your team accountable and motivated. So it's not a small task, and I'm sure you're all very aware of that. So this session today is grounded in research from Harvard and the really powerful diagnostic tool that you may have heard of before and built from that work, which is the Team Diagnostic Survey, which measures the 6 conditions that account for up to 80% of a team's effectiveness. And so when you know what to look for, you can then lead and design your teams in a way that really works. So I'd like to just share a little bit of an overview of what to expect in today's session. I know people are still popping into the meeting, so we'll give everyone a couple more minutes. But we're going to explore what so many teams struggle, why so many teams struggle to meet their potential, even those that have really smart people, capable people on board within their teams, and what separates the best teams from the rest. So we're going to really focus on why team performance often fails to match the promise, and how to shift from that groupthink to greatness. We're also going to look at the 6 most common tripwires that derail teams and how to avoid those tripwires, and also cover the 3 often unexpected drivers of team excellence and how to build them into your leadership toolkit. So this is going to be quite a fast-paced session, probably more so than other webinars that we've run in the past. Phil and Louise are going to be sharing some concepts and tools that you can start to apply straight away into your work life. And we're going to share also how you can go deeper through not only our high performance team program, but also, pretty excitingly, a brand new program that we are launching right here today. So you'll be the first to hear about this new program. And then finally, we will open up for a short Q&A. So feel free to pop any questions into the chat as we go. And then at the very end, we've got a special thank you for everyone that stays on until the close. So I'd like to dive in. It is my pleasure to introduce 2 brilliant facilitators, leadership experts, Philip Ralph, founder and CEO of the Leadership Sphere, and Louise Duncan, senior facilitator and all-round awesome human.
How come I didn't get the all-round awesome human? Thanks so much, Kelly. Hey, welcome everyone. Yeah, really excited about today's webinar. This is the fifth webinar in a series, which are loosely related, but I think for us, the unit of productivity in organizations is teams. And yet the 3,000 or so teams that I've worked with, I've never actually met one that are a team which is fully aligned, has high trust, know where it's going, understands its purpose, and is designed for success. And so we thought we would open the box a little and talk about some of the things we're looking for when we start working with teams to really shortcut and fast track the development process. So as Kelly said, I am the founder and CEO. We've been around for 18 years now, and I still love and get a kick out of working with organizations of all shapes and sizes to really enhance performance and health. Not health as in wellness, although that's important, but health as in being functional, having high levels of trust, people being aligned and feeling great about their work. So that's really what gets me out of bed. So Lou, I'll hand over to you for a short intro.
Lovely. Hi. Thanks, Phil. And hi, everyone. It's lovely to see you, some of you here this morning to be joining you on this webinar. Yes, I'm Louise Duncan, a Senior Consultant, Facilitator and Coach at the Leadership Sphere. I love this work. I've been working with people in different capacities for more than 30 years. And at the Leadership Sphere, I facilitate the key signature programs, one of which is the High Performing Team Program. So it's my absolute pleasure to be joining you here this morning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump straight in because, as Kelly mentioned, we've got quite a lot that we want to share with you. It is going to be, as she mentioned, quite fast paced, but we really want to start you thinking differently and thinking about your teams and the teams that you're involved with, and in particular, teams that you care about. But first and foremost, what I want to begin with is, what's the best research around teams? What's available? Because in theory, teams can be far more effective and can do much greater things than individuals alone. It's not universally true, of course, because there are still things that individuals can do better by themselves. But a few examples of how teams can be more effective, include two heads, four eyes, and much better than one. In leadership teams, having multiple people who are all paying attention to the external environment, thinking about the implications, bringing the intelligence into the enterprise, that's far more powerful than just one lone strategist or CEO doing it by themselves. So teams, to be able to embrace that and to harness that in teams can be incredibly valuable. The other one, that teams can address polarities, and an example of that is that teams can deliver in the present as well as have an eye on the ball of, okay, what's needed next? Innovation, what's needed in the future? And then they can hold the tension and the polarities between that, the present, here and now, and also what's needed. The other thing that teams can do at times more effectively than individuals is that individuals can solve tensions in a particular direction, depending on their skill set and also the lenses that they bring to the challenges that we have today. Whereas teams, when it's done well, they can hold the tensions and deploy the resources more effectively, have agility that is so needed in our world, our fast-paced world today. You can see there's networks, obviously teams can extend the networks beyond what an individual can. They can mobilize people, gather information, and enact strategies, I should say, more broadly than any individual. And then finally, the potential for learning and development. When we work with people, that can make us better. And so teams, they can bring the best out in us and they offer that opportunity. When teams are done well, we can be more effective, more adaptable, more skilled at what we feel passionate about and what is important to us, succeeding in reaching the purpose of the teams that we're a part of. And yet in reality, what happens, and this is some research, is that you can see here, less than 20 or 21% are considered really superb. really superb, so just getting my technology right, superb teams. Far more are mediocre at best or poor in the way that they interact and reach towards their purpose. And you can see here also that, really what happens is teams can seriously underserve their stakeholders when that's the case. And they can, get stuck in that group think, and forget to be able to think outside the box or in different directions. And they can alienate each other. They can free ride that whole idea of social loafing, as well as understanding that if this is in place, then it can get worse over time. So that's a really brief sort of introduction into the research. Phil, you want to run with some of the challenges and the opportunities that we can have?
Yeah, I will do. Thank you. So yeah, just going a little bit deeper now on what those are in terms of the teams that weren't rated superb. So the first one is over 85% of an organization's value is created in teams. And as we've just heard, despite that, less than 20% or around 20% are high performing and the rest aren't. So we know that from research from McKinsey, for example, that those who create high levels of value are 2.1 times more successful. So those teams that are aligned create much more productive results, I guess. Poorly designed teams destroy value, and they do it quickly and silently. So misaligned teams are costly, and there's a ripple effect, as we know, in organizations of misfiring teams, which can be quite devastating, particularly if they're the executive team, because that ripple effect obviously goes right across the organization. Teams can over-index on interpersonal relationships, and I really like this one. What we often see in organizations is there might be some things happening in the team, might be low levels of trust or fractured relationships, so people naturally focus on those. Whereas when we start an engagement, we think about the team design and the structure and the context first, and then often the relationships are caused by systemic issues, not interpersonal issues. And so we're actually misdiagnosing the situation in the first instance. So making sure that we have the team design correct first before we then spend a lot of time and effort and potentially money in trying to rectify relationships. Both go hand in hand, of course, but it's really the order we do it is really important. Teams are really teams. I'm sure you've all experienced this, though. They can often just be teams in name only, and the level of collaboration is limited. So what we see most often is people, attend the SLT, senior leadership team meetings for executive team meetings as representatives of their departments or silos, rather than actually working across the enterprise as one team. And so teams that do work across the enterprise can actually create and reduce coordination costs by more than 50%. So it's massive, but I reckon at least 80 or 90% of teams turn up as representatives and talk about my team rather than the team that actually they're part of. So that's important to note. Also, most change is top down. So teams are an ideal scale to really be what's called culture carriers. So if we're trying to scale transformational change or culture change, the unit or the productivity that we can get from a team is, very high. So why not use teams to be culture carriers in a positive sense, not in a negative sense? So let's dig into this now, and Lou's now going to take us through the 6 conditions that we've talked about a little bit, and we're going to kind of alternate as we go through. What are those essential foundational pieces that we must have in place in order for a team to fire? So over to you, Lou.
Great, thanks, Phil. So really, these 6 conditions are drawn from the Team Diagnostic Survey, and this is a really well-validated instrument that supports us to be able to diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of teams. And it's drawn from the extensive research over many decades from Ruth Wagman and her colleagues based at Harvard and other universities. And over several decades, they worked and assessed teams across many different industries and sectors, including business, government, military, healthcare, education. And they came up with these 6 conditions, and they realised that they're called the essentials and the enablers, and these are what support or predict 80% of team success. Beyond that, there's 3 key task processes and then 3 key effectiveness, key team effectiveness elements. Now, what we're going to do today is Phil and I, we're going to concentrate on the first six conditions. And sorry. Just bringing up as my slides have just slowed down a little bit, but the 6 conditions there, the essentials and also the enablers. And what I want to say first and foremost is that throughout TLS, whether we use the TDS, the Team Diagnostic Survey specifically or not, we always use the principles. So in the discovery survey, when we're working with our teams and organisations, then we take time to work through and understand the impact of these 6 conditions. So the first one that I would really like to focus on is this is the real team. Because often what happens in teams that we're engaged with are in name only. So, they're called a team, but are they actually a team? And this is what we need to be able to understand. So most things that we call teams aren't. You can see that many of the observations that we have is that people have been brought together, individuals have been brought together for the sake of inclusivity, because that's what's always been done before. It's a collection of individuals who are there, but they can move in and out of the work at will. There's not a shared responsibility or a shared commitment to what the team is theoretically designed to do. So they may attend meetings together, but the team membership is often unstable. It's unclear and it lacks interdependence. And so part of what we want to do is to be able to understand, well, how do we create a real team? What are the elements that we need to look at? Because what often happens in organisations is a CEO will say, I have 16 direct reports. They're my team. But they're managed individually, they're measured individually, and they don't collaborate as a unit. So they're not an actual team. So what we need to be able to do is create a small nimble teams, or teams that can solve shared problems with shared accountability. And so instead of saying we have a problem that is going to impact 15 different areas of the organisation, and then bring together 15 separate individuals who come theoretically as a team, and yet they've already been signaled that their role is to take care of their area of the organisation. We need to step back from that process. That's what normally happens. We need to create a different way. How do we actually bring together the best team possible so that it is a real team in more than just name? So part of what we do to do that is we design specifically and consciously. A great team is one that meets the needs of all its stakeholders. You can see that it gets better and better over time, and then it contributes to the well-being and the development of the individual members. But for this to occur, these 3 elements are needed. It needs to be bounded. So teams need to know, there needs to be clarity around who belongs to the team and who doesn't. And then that is known very clearly within the team and also externally to the team. So it's bounded in a very clear way. It's stable, so that teams, members belong to the team long enough so that they can accomplish significant things together. And then finally, that they're interdependent. They're accountable to each other. They interact and rely on each other to get the work done. Often, as I said, people will have disparate individuals that will come together, and they're not these 3 elements are missing. If even one of those elements are missing, it can undermine the effectiveness of a team. I'll just quickly share with you in relation to this, one of the behavioural consequences that can happen when we have a team as in name only, when it's not a real team, and it's in relation to meetings. If you look at this graph is actually in the graphs that we're using through the webinar. They're actually representative samples of teams that we've sorted to get an aggregated view. But this is the tripwire, one of the, how the tripwires can manifest. That's what happens if we've got disparate individuals come together in a team. What stands out for you when you look at that? Anyone? Can pop. I'll just jump in. 55% of the time, what happens, and this is through research, people are just sharing information, they're just presenting information. So there's no collaboration, there's no consultation with each other, there's no coordination of joint and joint decisions. Yeah. So it becomes just this download process. And for many of us, that's our experience of teams. It doesn't allow the real work of teams to occur. So that's the first essential real team, and the tripwire that they're in the name only. Phil is going to take us through. What I do want to say at the end of the session, there will be plenty of time for questions. If you have questions come up throughout the webinar, please jump in or just pop it in the chat because we can address them throughout the session as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lou. Tripwire number 2. So we all know the purpose of the team. It's amazing. Yeah, as I said, I've worked with more than 3,000 teams, and I've never met a team that actually has been clear about its purpose. What we often do is confuse the organizational mission or the departmental mission or purpose with our team purpose, and they're actually quite different. And so being super clear on what that purpose is can be enormously beneficial for teams. As it says there, it helps us orientate around the purpose, and it helps us get clear about that purpose. So what we actually do, just to make it super clear, is we use the language distinctive contribution. So one of the conversations we have is, once they've established a vision and they have their team purpose, we say, well, what is it that only you can do as a collective? And most of the time, that's quite a challenging exercise for people. So we don't want you to say generic things that anyone else in the organization, even those with lots of authority, can do. But as a collective group, you come together regularly. What can only you do? And then they start to land on things like enterprise-wide change or transformation, or setting the conditions for, a constructive culture, which only the top team can do because of their position and their authority. So we talk about purpose must be consequential. So, the so what of it has to have real impact, challenging but feasible. So there is some stretch there. And also it's clear about what does success look like. We normally move about 3 years out, but then we operationalize that with a 12-month plan as well in the strategic planning part of any team day or team program. So into the wrong people on the team, Lou.
Great, thanks, Phil. So this is tripwire number 3, and related to the last of the essential components that we need for teams to be the most effective they can be. And really, it's about the fact we need the right people. It seems obvious, and yet what happens time and time again is the wrong people end up on teams. And these are some of the reasons. We're paying attention only to the task and skills, not the teamwork skills that are needed. We're minimizing diversity. We're sort of keeping everything quite narrowly focused in terms of skills and perspectives. We're avoiding the huge emotional challenge of removing members when that's actually would be more helpful for the team. And then we're sort of just taking, okay, we've inherited this team, that's what we've got to work with. So it's not always easy to get to get the right people. It does take time. It does take thought and effort. Where we should be starting in our thinking is, well, what is the work that needs to be done? That's where we begin. And then what is the collaboration that's required? Who has the skills, the insight, the team orientation to contribute? This is what supports us to start identify the right people. This feels really hard because often what happens in organizations, and leaders are human beings, and we feel attached to the people that are on our team, whether they're the right people or not. So, and it often it demands difficult conversations that we may need to have, and not all leaders feel really skilled or capable in being able to do that. But when you get the wrong group of people who aren't aligned, who don't have the right skills, who aren't committed to what needs to occur in a team, they can't work interdependently, then the dysfunction of the team is almost guaranteed before you even start the work. So part of what we need to start looking at is who are the right people? How do we start to bring that up? And I've mentioned some of it. They have the skills to contribute to the purpose of the team. There's a diversity of experience, perspective, skills that they can demonstrate teamwork competencies. They know how to collaborate. They know how to interact and rely on each other. They know how to contribute in a way that brings the best out in teams, and they have the agility to move together. It embraces that idea of teaming. And also, and this is what can be very challenging for leaders, and I understand this, but at times we need to remove the derailers. Those members of teams who consciously or unconsciously undermine others or bring the worst out in their colleagues. So part of what we begin to do is, Ruth Wagman and her colleagues, they call it's the science and the art of composing a team. So we need to be able to identify the key skills and the collaborative capabilities. Absolutely. Think about the work and the numbers, the individual contributors on board. But then at times, what we also need to be able to do, if a team is struggling, if the poor design is undermining it, if there's unclear purpose or misaligned membership, sometimes the best option is to not try and coach them through it. It's to relaunch. And what we mean by that is it's hitting the pause button, and it's revisiting purpose, revisiting membership and boundaries, giving the team a fresh start under improved conditions. So this is one of the most powerful tools that organisations can use, and it can free up individuals to contribute in their best way possible to create the most highly effective teams possible. So the idea of relaunching, at times leaders can shy away from, and yet the opportunities that it can bring can be enormous. Phil, over to condition 4.
Yeah, I was just thinking, hey, we've finished the essentials, real team, right people, and compelling purpose. I wonder if we just pause there, just check in. Is this resonating with people of value? Do you have questions? Maybe a thumbs up if we're going okay, or if we need to change tack, or we're not answering your questions. Thank you, Richie. We've got one thumbs up. We can continue.
Right. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah.
Oh, lots of love hearts there. That's lovely. Yeah, we might just pause for comments or questions. You can either pop them in the chat or unmute yourself and feel free to ask a question.
This is a question around the differences in capacity of the team. Like, to some extent, that those differences in capacity to execute work can complement, but then it can affect others who are of higher capacity.
Yes.
But they still have a contribution at that level of their capacity, and that could still be useful, but it frustrates the others who have more capacity. I hope I'm clear with the question there, that how do you manage that differences in the capacity of the team and ensure that others who have more capacity stay motivated to keep going?
Yeah, great questions. There's probably a lot in an answer. I think as we're talking about the capacity for teaming, Amy Edmondson talks about that. We normally structure teams based on what's organizationally convenient, so lines and boxes on a chart, which isn't necessarily the best way to construct the team. It normally is, but in terms of people's capacity, and some will be high, some will be low, how do you then team together to be able to address people's strengths and really make the most of the team? So 1 + 1 should equal 3 to teams, but often 1 + 1 equals -1, right? Because you get a bunch of people together, and they don't necessarily how to work well together.
Yeah, I wanted to explain more, just for better context and understanding, that like a team of football, like soccer, like the teams like teams where Ronaldo plays. Ronaldo is a top player in the world, one of the most recognized player in the world, and he contributes to the team's success because of his capacity. But
I think I understand the context.
He can't do without the goalkeeper or the right back. You still need that.
Yeah. What's the question though? I get the context.
Yeah. So the question is like, how do you then still be able to keep everybody else motivated because of the different capacity levels?
Yeah. I think I don't know. It sounds like I'm not answering the question sufficiently for you. For us, the principle is get the structure and the design right first, and then the other part of that is what is the team leader's role in the motivation piece that you talk about in even though there's different capacities, if we have high levels of trust and psychological safety, we can talk about those things openly and almost compensate for one another's shortfalls. So I think there's two parts, structure, design, but then the human element, right? How do we create a safe space for people to talk about when they need help? We know the fastest way to build trust is to ask for help. That's kind of a bit counterintuitive. So that's how I think, great teams are able to compensate for one another, build on each other's strengths, and be open enough to talk about different capacities, different levels of vulnerability, and how people are traveling on that journey. So, okay, got a thumbs up. That's good. I had to work hard for that one. Maybe one other question.
Phil,
Sorry,
Lisa and Lauren, they've made some great, like Lisa's asked a really good question just in the chat around if you don't have the opportunity to remove members of the team, you know, how she says, I am assuming we need to then look at how to bring them up to the expectations. And Lauren is relating to that as well. She's inherited a team. So they're just, I suppose, drawing on your experience of what to do.
yeah,
I
it
think
is.
it's connected with what you were saying then too, around strengths-based leadership.
Yeah, it's true, right? That if it becomes an individual performance issue, then we need to address that specifically. But if they're part of a team, they will dilute the impact or the power of the team. So then that becomes, well, are they the right person in the right role? And as you were alluding to, Lou, I think sometimes if we think about people's strengths, how do we either craft a role which better suits their strengths and style? But unfortunately, sometimes we just have to, if you can't change the leader, you need to change the leader, as in out. So ultimately, that's where it may end up, but hopefully not. But that's the challenge, isn't it? About getting people up to a level of expectation. But as Brené Brown talks about, clear is kind. So being super clear on expectations and then coaching and empowering, developing people to meet those expectations. But it doesn't happen in all cases, does it? We know that sometimes people, their roles have to change. So, yeah. Did Lauren or Lisa, did you want to add anything to that? No. Awesome.
Hi, Phil. No, I was just going to say, yeah, in my team, we're all occupational therapists. So I think in terms of trying to performance manage, that's probably one aspect, but it's really about then their buy-in to want to collaborate as a team. It's trying to generate that culture and that enthusiasm as well.
Yeah, and I think that's right, generate. Absolutely. We sometimes overemphasize the leader's role to motivate. If you take a pure psychological perspective, we actually can't motivate other people. But what we can do is create the conditions where people feel motivated. And so those conditions are having a clear structure, clear purpose, clear roles, being able to help each other, knowing how to team really well. And therefore, people find their own purpose and meaning to the work that they're doing. And I know, if you're a physiotherapist or a surgeon, we come to every team with two hats. One is our technical specialization, which got us to that place in the first place, most likely. And the second hat, of course, is being a team member of a senior team. And how do we train people to be able to wear those hats effectively, which is quite hard because we got to a particular level because we're really good technicians. But now you're asking me to get rid of my technician. We're not. We're just saying when you're at the senior table, you have to think about the enterprise first and your technical area of specialization second. And that's quite difficult for people. All right. I think it's my turn, isn't it, Lou? Am I talking about? Yeah, I think I'm talking about condition 4.
Yes.
Thank you for those questions, by the way. So it does relate to what I was talking about, I guess, is how do we design the team? So getting the basic structure right. Size is really important. And we often see teams which are in double figures. And the general recommendation is, how do we have 6 single-digit teams, so 8 or 9 at most? And some of you all know that Jeff Bezos, as in Amazon founder, a team should only be big enough that 2 pizzas will feed it adequately. If 2 pizzas isn't enough, the team's probably too big. A funny rule of thumb, but it's probably not a bad rule of thumb. Making sure that we're really clear on the task and the agendas at meetings, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, is really clear. Not an operational report about what we've been doing, which then is just, why soak up valuable leadership team time with things that we can read in an operational report? So don't look backwards. A team meeting at the senior levels particularly should be about any exceptions that need to be managed, any adaptive challenges that need the collective intelligence in the room, but also mostly looking forward. And then the norms, you can see by the graph there that standing teams are really clear on the behavioural boundaries that they're willing to accept. And I guess that comes back to your question and some of the other questions about expectations. And we know that values are enormously powerful, which is why we build getting clear on the values and the behavioural markers or anchors around those values in every team program that we run. And then this really comes back to I think the meeting structure, right? Just please put in the chat if you really like attending meetings. I know this is a generalization. Just say yes. If you're not so much, maybe just say no. I don't know about you, but I'm a no person. I think we have too many meetings in organisations. No. Excellent. Definitely not. Depends on agenda. Yes, Lisa, you're absolutely right. So it may not surprise you to know that when we work with teams, one of the things we have built in from experience is team meeting cadence, purpose, structure. And some of the research suggests that most people, nearly 50%, think meetings are a complete waste of time. In fact, we have been so motivated to really help teams have better meetings where people actually are excited to go, right? Rather than, I've got to go to another time-wasting meeting, that we created a scorecard based on, this is one of the best books you'll ever read. In fact, it's the best book I've ever read on meetings. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought this was going to be a very dry read, but it's a fantastic read by Stephen Rogelberg, The Surprising Science of Meetings. Brilliant. In fact, we created a scorecard because we're so moved to actually help teams have better meetings. So we've got a scorecard where people can complete it. Takes about 5 minutes, and you can get areas of meeting design, time dynamics, interpersonal dynamics, discussion dynamics, and what happens after the meeting. And you can kind of get a report immediately, which is quite powerful. I wonder actually if there's someone on the team, if we would maybe locate that link so people, it's free. We'll pop it in the chat. Oh, it's already in there. Wow, that was quick.
Sarah was one step ahead, Phil. She was on top.
Well done.
Top of it.
Well done. Awesome. So that's structure. So really important. The next piece, of course, is tripwire number 5, which Lou's going to take us through.
So yeah, the second one is, it's, as you can see there, it's about a supportive context. And essentially, that a supportive context either supports a team to be productive together. If it's not supportive, then of course it doesn't support that. But what gets in the way of it are the information systems. That example that we've got listed there, the 3-inch binder, is actually refers to an executive team that Phil worked with, that they had fortnightly meetings. Before every meeting, they literally received a 3-inch binder of 700 odd pages that they had to read before each meeting. So not setting those executives up for success and moving into those meetings. So information systems are just designed where, far from enabling and encouraging their people to be their best and to do their best work, it actually impedes or prevents that exactly occurring. You can see there's other issues there that get in the way, or other elements that get in the way of teams being as productive. Rewards that undermine collaboration. So there's a sole focus on individuals often. The unfairness, or it dilutes trust in the way that is communicated. that there's no novel challenges or support for learning. So it doesn't support people to be their best and to continue developing as individuals, that they can then bring that into the team and the team learns and develops. And then just working obstacles, there's poor space, there's not enough time, and so forth. So part of the way that we can begin to work with this is by looking exactly at those components, that, reward systems, that they reinforce team excellence, not just individual excellence. They emphasize team achievement, and do that openly and honestly, in a way that becomes part of the culture of the team. That the information systems actually support their teams to gain access to the data and the information that they need when they need it. That there's education, that, both interpersonal and technical expertise, that develops both of those levels when the team again needs it. And then there's material resources, that, the time, the space, the stuff that teams need to get done what they need to get done. And, a lot of that seems like common sense. And yet we see time and time again, and the research shows that time and time again, teams do not have these in place. Organisations do not have these things in place to support their teams to do the best that they can. And fuel, the fifth condition.
Yeah. So this tripwire is about team coaching and not having sufficient support. So really, does the team, so the research showed that this is a pretty obvious one, I guess, but the team has either internal or external support, which is available, readily available. It's helpful, and it's good quality support in terms of team coaching. So that's what this is really about. And as you can see there, that quote, but I have, coaches for all my team members. We're not talking about individual coaching here. We're talking about group coaching or workshops. So we run workshops full days or 2 days. We also run 2-hour sessions at regular intervals for senior teams to really help them along the way as well. So that's, I think I've covered that off. So that's the team coaching piece. I'm just aware of time, so we'll keep moving. Lou, for the final piece.
It's really just a visual for understanding. So what drives team excellence, and as leaders, where should our focus be? The 60-30-10 rule, 100%, it needs to be on team design. 60% of the time, that's where we need to begin. Without getting the essentials right, and then moving on to the enablers, we set teams up for failure and not to be the best that they can. Once we get the team design right, that's when we move on to launching, and launching well. And then the real-time coaching 10% of the time. So we're not putting out spot fires. We're not dealing with internal conflict that's arising from a lack of team design. So it's a really clear way, and that's what drives team excellence. But organisations, they do not often spend enough time on team design, and that's the focus, and that's what the TDS supports us in being able to address. So we're aware that we've covered a lot. There's going to be, we can see here, the essentials, the 6 components: real team, compelling purpose, right people, get that right first, and then into the enablers: sound structure, supportive context, and team coaching. So shortly, there's going to be time for questions. Kelly is about to take you through some of the components of our high-performing team program and other programs that support this work. If you have any questions that come up throughout, please pop it in the chat or just jump in. Phil, was there anything else you wanted to add before we move into that?
Yeah, I'm just going to add a little bit about, so we're not trying to sell the team diagnostic survey here, but if you're interested in learning more, we can definitely help you out. So just to reiterate, we don't use this on every occasion. We use the questions that sit behind it to help the leader understand their team and the structure. So we ask these questions, but in the TDS, we've only covered 50% of 50%. So in there's a whole range of other questions that talks about, and it's really hilarious. In some cases, we say, who's the team leader? So this is one of the questions in the TDS. You wouldn't believe how many times people actually there's confusion on who is the formal leader. How many people are in the team? We get responses from 2 to 50. So it's not bounded, it's not clear who's in the team. So it's enormously beneficial to be able to work through these challenges. I just wanted to share this this framework with you, which we use on every occasion with teams, and it's the high performance team model, which was originally came from research from McKinsey many years ago, which we kind of built out and amplified. We use this often in concert with the TDS, and we find this does an excellent job in between having a conversation about all of the things we've talked about on this webinar, and then this one really helps us, really understand the team at a more personal level as well. So those two factors together work really well. We just thought some might be interested in what a high performance team program looks like, and you can see the roadmap there. There's the discovery piece, which is what we've been talking about today in the framework I just showed you. Then designing a customized program. We often start with an introductory session, so they get to know us and we get to know them. And then a 2-day foundation program, which is where the rubber really hits the road, and we create a psychologically safe place for people to have the very robust discussions around the discovery report findings, and can be very very challenging for teams, but we guide them through that. So most of the time people say, hey, we've never had such a good quality conversation, or that was the hardest conversation I've ever had, but I feel great about it. So that's the foundation piece. And then the rest of the program is normally customized for the team, usually quarterly touch points. In terms of just quickly, a couple of things. These are 3 streams that we really think about. So the individual stream, the team stream, and then the organizational stream. And we see these as really working very well together. So for example, we might do individual coaching when we're working with a team, or we might do an enterprise-wide change process, which is the organizational excellence, while we're working with the top team. So they're quite interchangeable. And we do support teams to really think differently about, moving away from the industrial age paradigm, Taylorism, where, I just think we need to rewire and reframe how managers and leaders think about their role. We're still stuck in a period that served us well 150 years ago, but in the 21st century, in today's environment, we just don't structure teams and organizations optimally. So we really have those kinds of conversations. Just a quick one. We also have a fast track survey, which is a free, again, it's a free scorecard. You get an immediate report back. We sometimes use this with teams for just a half a day. Enormously impactful, and very teams find it to be very helpful. Rather than say a 12-month program, we can come in and do short bursts as well. These are some of the outputs you can see based on the 7 elements of a high performing team. You can see those 7 areas there. And people get recommendations immediately, which are based on how strongly or not people rated their team. So hopefully that's been a nice kind of holistic view of how we think about teams in both design and how we work with them. So Kelly's going to talk about a couple of exciting things now.
Thanks, Phil. So thank you so much, both of you, Phil and Lou, for sharing a huge amount of value and insight into maybe a different way to how to build high-performing teams. So we'd love to open up for any questions that you have around that high-performing teams piece and or the team diagnostic survey piece. So please feel free to pop any questions that you might have into the chat now, and we'll come back to those questions in just a moment. But I would like to now introduce a very exciting new program called Amplify Plus. You can see here on the screen. This program's designed to help senior leaders, so really for that senior leadership level, to step out of the weeds and into that strategic influence so that they can lead transformations and elevate their own teams, to also build their executive brand and to unlock their next level with real clarity and confidence. So we'd just like to share a little bit about this new program. So why Amplify Plus? It really is to help leaders, like I said, step out of the weeds and into that strategic influence. And what we are doing with this program is it's a phased approach. So phase 1 is leadership leverage. So in the first 30 to 60 days of the program, what we do is we help you build your strategic impact plan, clarify your team's purpose and priorities, and really start installing those high impact delegation and accountability frameworks. We also help you to pinpoint where you're doing the team's work instead of leading the team, and identifying those capability gaps and bottlenecks that are often slowing down the progress. Then phase 2, we move into strategic elevation. So what that looks like is helping you to build a high performance culture. So embedding team systems for that ownership piece, feedback and continuous improvement, developing those emerging leaders coming through so you're no longer the bottleneck. Also creating team rituals and rhythms that drive that performance so that you don't have to have that constant oversight. That second element in the middle there is expanding your influence and strategic leadership impact for the team. So it's shifting from that operational leadership to strategic contribution, strengthening stakeholder relationships as well, and increasing the visibility and influence that you hold. And then also learning to communicate with authority, lead up and down, and also across the organization, really essential pieces of the puzzle. And then also positioning for what's next. So that's what's next for you as well. So clarifying your next role, crafting that visibility strategy to get you there as well. So what does it look like? It looks like leadership sessions on team development, influence and visibility. What we're going to be doing is holding those the first Tuesday of each month. There'll be peer coaching and guided group sessions, which will be the third Tuesday of each month. You'll also have a high caliber network of senior leaders. So we'll be interviewing, and it's an application process to be a part of this group. So we know that there's going to be a really high caliber network of strong leaders, of senior leaders who challenge and back each other. And you'll also receive strategic career planning tools as well. So this is only really for people who have more than 5 years of leadership experience already under the belt. If you're leading a team or a function inside of a fast-moving or complex business, if your team maybe isn't quite stepping up or thinking critically or owning those outcomes, this could be something for you. Also, if you're feeling stretched and overcommitted because you're doing all the work and maybe your team isn't stepping up to the plate, this also could be for you. And also if you're hungry to grow and if you're willing to challenge yourself and your team to be better, and if you want real world impact, not just the fluff or theory. So applications are currently open, and I'm just going to pop a link into the chat for anybody that would like to read a little bit more and potentially apply for the program. So it's a 2-minute survey that you can quickly pop in your application, and we'll book a time to connect and make sure it's the right fit for you. That makes sure we've got the right people in the group, and then also then we'll get you set up and book in your strategic impact plan so that you know exactly where to focus for the beginning of the program.
Hey, Kelly, it might just be, sorry to interrupt, the difference between this program and the high performance team program. So we're really talking about group coaching here, right? So
absolutely. Good pickup, Phil. Yes. So this program is for individuals, whereas the high performance team program is where we would come into your organization and work with your high performance team or your top leadership team. This particular program is more for individual leaders that want to elevate and amplify their impact from a team perspective.
Yep. Perfect.
Love it. And I just also wanted to mention if maybe that isn't the right fit for you, if you haven't got 5 years plus experience as a leader, the Leadership Excellence Program, the public program, may be something to consider as well. And what that looks like follows our leadership excellence model, our human-centered leadership excellence model, which starts with leading self, moving through to leading teams, leading people, and leading the organization. And so there's a lot of information on our Leadership Excellence Program on our website, but we have one more program for the rest of the year, which is in October, and we do have a couple of spots available on that program. So we'd love for you to check that out. Phil, I will hand back over to you to maybe mention a little bit about your book.
Yeah, I'm a bit biased here, but this is an awesome book. So yeah, we'd love, obviously social proof is really powerful. So we'd love you to talk about the webinar and some of the learnings potentially on LinkedIn, and just tag us and we'll send you a couple of copies of my book, which people tell me is a great read, high value, simple to understand, but different from the normal leadership books, of which there are 2,000 published every year. So I'm glad that we can kind of get some clear airspace above the normal, but it's very focused on accelerating team performance through adaptive leadership. So particularly suited for any organizations that are in complexity or have to create a transformation program or just want to change their culture. So this is the enabler. The book's focus is really enabling. How do we do that as leaders? So yeah, that's the plug, but it's free, right?
So thank you everyone for coming along today. We really value your time. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to either pop yourself off mute or pop into the chat any questions around what we've discussed today. Hugely valuable information there, as I think a few people have mentioned. Wonderful.
So just while we're waiting for any questions, thanks so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure presenting some of the information to you. And yeah, hopefully it's been of value. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.